All right, and here they are, quite a foursome indeed. We've got Jordan McNamara, we have G of the Aussies, and we have Matt Hicks. So I'm going to go around the horn. Jordan is drawn the 101, G the 102, Matt the 103. So before their first pick, we're going to chat it up. We want to know what's going on. Give them a chance to promote. All these guys have big stuff going on. And I'm going to start with Mr. Jordan McNamara. You can find him on Twitter at McNamara Dynasty. He is an author. He is a podcast host, and he's got a lot going on. Jordan, this is your annual trip to the WarZone, man. How you been?
I've been good, man. How are you?
Man, we've been doing great, man. It's been a busy off season. We've added about, a bajillion shows, and always time to talk rookies. This is my favorite time of the year. The in-season stuff slows down. We have the Super Bowl left to go, and then we can really get into rookies. This is where I need to have the conversations we're going to have tonight to try to pinpoint this rookie value. I know you do a lot of good stuff, not only with your authoring, which you're going to tell us about your book, but you also do good stuff over at the Dynasty Daily Pods and the UTH, man. So what's going on with you?
Oh, it's that time of year. So I'm releasing the analytics of Dynasty actually this Saturday. So you can go to analyticsofdynasty.com/shop and you can pre-order the 2021 edition for $30. So it's got a whole different take. We were talking before the show, like each year's a little bit different. This year focuses a lot on market value, different types of player profiles. One thing in my research that I found was like was looking at, what do we know after a year basically of a player, and whether that's in a startup draft or a rookie draft, because it's actually a lot of information. So I really looked at that stuff and tried to get a better idea of career arcs in terms of those types of players. So a lot of stuff on rookie metrics as well. And it's a whole different thing. There's no real overlap in terms of any of the prior content. So I'm pretty excited about all of it. So you can find it. You can pre-order. It's over at analyticsofdynasty.com/shop. In the left-hand corner there, it says, order 2021 edition. So you can go ahead and get that and follow me on Twitter and check out the Football Guys podcast as well.
Well, very excited to have you back on the show and your book. So looking forward to that. Drops this week. Check him out at McNamara Dynasty on Twitter. All right, Mac, you're on the clock. You have the 101. Now you're selecting from the 2019 class, you're selecting from the 2020 class, or the 2021 class. We're going to figure out tonight how good is Trevor Lawrence, how good is Zach Wilson, Justin Fields, etc. So who's the 101 in this class?
Came down to two people for me. I'll take the guy that I know a little bit more about, even if I don't think he's perfect. I'll go with Kyler Murray. And one of the things that the more and more research that I do, and I'm looking at, I think that this whole offseason is fascinating from a quarterback perspective, because Schefter took the over on 18 different teams changing quarterbacks today, which seems outrageous. But when you sort of delve into it, it's not, I don't think it's going to happen, but it's not entirely impossible. But one of the things I've looked at a lot is this quarterback value in the, and what some of these trades would cost, and sort of what the hit rate is on quarterback. And the more and more I look at quarterback, and the more and more I study quarterback, I think it's a lot like dating. You don't marry your spouse on the first date. At least you shouldn't, unless you're on a game show. And that's a lot of how I think about quarterback. You need to know a lot about the person, and you don't need to take risks, especially in super flex drafts. So I thought about taking Herbert over Murray, but I know I've seen a couple of years on Murray. I kind of know who he is on a player, even if I have some skepticism about him as a passer. I've seen a top 6 finish out of him, and I kind of know what I'm going to get. So I'll take him with the quarterback 1 finish, with the hope that maybe he can take. I think we should banish the Josh Allen leap from our lexicon, but that he can take a step forward in year 3, I think is possible for him.
I love Kyler Murray. The one thing that I think is holding him back is his head coach. There's a real, I forget, I saw the record that he was 13 games below 500 or something with Patrick Mahomes at Texas Tech. I don't know that he's the long-term answer for Kyler, but we've seen Kyler do it. He was the QB1 overall for the 2020 season up until about week 2014 where he had like the shoulder injury and he stopped running as much, but certainly has the upside to not only be a QB1, which is kind of obvious 2 years in, but to be the QB1. And speaking of 101, this next guy is number 101 in my heart, all the way from the land of Australia. I got to get this guy on at least a couple of times a year to talk some shop. So, G, what's going on in Australia besides the fact that we were cussing you before we hit record? It's 75 degrees Fahrenheit. That's 24 Celsius. Learn something else new tonight. So besides great weather, a little bit of rain today, what else is going on in Australia with you and your co-host G? And who would you take at the 102?
Back on
And,
from SmackDown.
well, you were muted. You pulled a Jerry. We call that pulling a Jerry around here. I got you, brother. I got you.
You got me?
I got you.
I haven't touched anything.
So Jerry's not here. So in his honor, you pulled a Jerry. So
Okay.
man, what's going on in Australia?
So you can hear me. This is working
beautifully. Yeah,
all good. Okay. Well, we've pretty much wrapped up the season. We've just got our pre-season picks in a couple of weeks after, or the week after the Super Bowl, where we get you back on Memphis and we get Kyle from the FF SmackDown, and we go through and look at all the mistakes that we made. If the Chiefs win it this week, I get at least one thing right for the entire season. So we're just delving in now to the into the rookies. I sit here in this room here for about 3 hours a night, every night after dinner, and just sit down until my eyes start to fall out of my sockets, and just see what the rookies. So we're just doing that at the moment. I'm looking at the wide receivers, and what we'll do is each week we'll just get 5 guys, and we'll talk about the 5 guys at each position until we get through as many as we possibly can, and then we'll get guests on to come on and see how they view these guys. People with a lot more experience than we have, like guys like Matt Waldman, for instance, who comes on and does our usually does our wide receivers, which is a great chat with him. So that's what's going on here, mate. And it's like it's the middle of summer. You know, yesterday was 40, 100 and something. Today's 24. So that's what you get living in Melbourne, mate. You never know until you wake up and look out the window. Okay, so you want my pick?
Yeah, fire away,
okay.
man. I'm dying to know. I didn't get the 101 I thought I would get. And by the way, if you're looking for guests, both of these guys would make great guests. A side note, just a sidebar. But yeah, man, who are you taking at the 102?
Well, I'm glad that the first pick's gone in Kyler Murray, because I'm still. I'll say to Jordan on his pick, it's the concerns that if he doesn't run and doesn't score rushing touchdowns, that he's just a middle-of-the-road scoring quarterback. Like, you were relying on his legs so much, and I'm still concerned that he's going to take a hit one day and you're not going to see him for a while. We don't need to speak about the size of the guy. We know how small, and I still have concerns that he can't throw through the line unless there's a gap.
Yeah, I mean, he's the only thing I would say about quarterback size is he's been that way his entire life, right? His entire life as a quarterback, he's been undersized, and
he used to be hard on his mum when he was born, but that's okay.
Yeah. So you, I don't know. With that, like, I'm 6'4", right? So there's certain things that I do in life that I'm 6'4". I'm just used to doing because I'm 6'4". Kyler Murray is what, 5'11", 6 foot. He's used to doing things in whether that's throwing at angles and all of those things, avoiding contact. He's not making Josh Allen type reckless plays with his body because, like, he's kind of learned not to do that, where Josh Allen is running quarterback dives at the goal line. You know what I mean? So they're just different. They're different skills. And that's kind of with me. I don't know. I'll take the devil that I know, even though I think that he has warts. Like, I don't have him anywhere near as high as he is in startup drafts where he's going. But I think I know. I'll dance with the devil that I know over the one that I don't know.
Okay. All right. With that being said, I'm pretty happy. I'm going to take Justin Herbert. Like, to see what he did last year, like the season that he had, the record-breaking season. Okay, the record wasn't great as wins and losses, but I'm not going to put that on him. He did what he had to do. They have some holes to fill in other positions, but 31 touchdowns, almost 4,500 yards, only 10 interceptions, and the completion rate of 66.6 for a rookie that got thrown into the mix because someone can't put a needle in the right spot. He was just seriously, he was just outstanding. I know my co-host AJ, he's a Chargers fan, and he was pulling his hair out that he didn't get Tua, but that has all changed now. And now he gets a new head coach in Brandon Staley, and they've just gone and signed up Joe Lombardi to be the offensive coordinator, I believe. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So he'll be working with him very closely. I think it's hard for the needle to keep pointing up because of what he did last year. But, mate, if we're going to redo all these, and the guys that are on here, I'm out after the first pick and taking running backs from now on in. But I'm more than happy to have Justin Herbert as the second guy off the board.
I love Justin Herbert, and I want to make a quick point about the running for both Kyler Murray and Josh Allen. Hey, Cam Newton, I believe, is a little bit bigger than Josh Allen, and eventually it caught up to Cam Newton. It'll eventually catch up to all of them, whether you're 5'10" or 6'4", whether you're 220 or 265. You know, your body's only going to take so many hits from a linebacker coming a bajillion miles an hour and slamming into you. So I also think that Kyler Murray, kind of like Russ, you know, he knows how to slide from being a baseball player. I know they nipped him a little bit this year, but I think he's a little bit more elusive than you let on. And I got a perfect segue. This next guy is not too elusive because he was here about a month ago. He was on with us, and his name is, well, first of all, congratulations are in order. He was recently promoted. I'll let him tell you all about it, but his name is Matt Hicks. You can find him at the FF_educator on Twitter. A great dude. He spends a lot of time in the GOAT chats with me. And congratulations on your promotion. You have on an evil Baltimore Orioles hat if you're watching live on YouTube. My father-in-law is an Orioles fan, and Jordan is a Yankees fan as I wear my Red Sox cap. But we had you back anyway, man. Welcome back.
Hey, man, I love being in the war zone. I'm glad to be here. And I will clear up the record here to start now. I did grow up a Yankees fan, and I am still a Yankees fan at heart. But I'm also a Baltimore Orioles season ticket holder because, guys, it is cheap. It is cheap, and there's not. I've been to almost. I think I've almost in double digits with the MLB stadiums, and it's hard to find a better pure baseball stadium than Camden Yards. So it's cheap, and it's a baseball purist, a real good spot for a baseball purist. So I'll throw that out there. But yeah, I appreciate it, man. We are trying to, really push out the Devy game, especially as the director of fantasy football for the NFL Draft Bible, and we're on Fan Nation powered by Sports Illustrated now. So I'm really excited about that. We're taking Devy to the mainstream. We're going to take rookies. We're going to take all this stuff to the mainstream. So I'm really excited to be a part of it. And, we're going to be talking about a lot of rookies here today. The rookie big board is what I'm spending way too much time right now trying to build out new podcast, rookie big board podcast. And currently I have 70 player profiles done on this rookie class, patreon.com/the FF educator. So amongst my ranting and raving, I wanted to make sure I mentioned that because I'm sure I will go down some rabbit holes as we get into talking about rookies.
Sounds like an unfair advantage. I've done 70.
Oh, gee, I didn't tell you that I brought on a couple of ringers for us. So, you're welcome. Welcome back, G.
I would have been better doing kickers or tight ends.
Now you tell me. We're doing tight ends next week. So Matt, you're up, man. You're the 103 in this little exercise. So I see the hand up. I think I know where you're going.
You guys made this easy for me. I thought it was going to be a little tougher here. I was running through my options, but he's sitting right there. It's Trevor Lawrence. It's got to be Trevor Lawrence for me here. And there's some really good options in the 2020 class still remaining. I'm still very much behind Tua, and obviously Burrow showed some great things, although I am worried about what Cincinnati is putting around him. But Trevor Lawrence for me, there's no such thing as a surefire prospect. I want to, go ahead and lay that out there, but he's pretty dang close. Huge arm. He's got the athleticism. He's got the ball placement. He's got the mechanics. He's got the foundation. And, I know Jacksonville is a punching bag, and for a lot of reasons they should be, but he's going to have some weapons to throw the ball to. DJ Chark, and that's going to kind of fit the field stretcher type guys he's been throwing to at Clemson. I'm a big Laviska Shenault fan. He's going to be running underneath, and even some of their later round draft picks, guys like Colin Johnson have flashed a little bit. So he's not stepping into a perfect spot, but I don't think he's stepping into an awful spot either. So I like Trevor Lawrence. I think he makes a quick impact. And, kind of Memphis, to your point, I think he's going to make a long impact. I think this is going to be a guy. Now, he can run, but he's certainly not, a rush first quarterback. I mean, the man's 6'6". So I think he's going to have a long career in the pocket, but with enough wiggle to be able to, broken play, scramble, get 5-6 yards, get your first down without getting your head knocked off.
Well, I was hoping that maybe you would get squirrely and take last year's Heisman Trophy winner for me. You would do that work for me so that I could have taken Trevor Lawrence. And yes, they will use the 101 on Trevor Lawrence, but they still have 5 other picks inside the top 97. So the odds of them improving the offense. Now that defense is, it looks like Swiss cheese on that side of the ball. So there's clearly a lot of room to improve over there. But you got to think, and hopefully, I hate it because they're in the Colts division. I'm a Colts fan. But hopefully they learn from the Colts' mistake and quit trying to do too much and just surround this guy with better offensive line and support him. The receivers will come and go. The NFL is pumping those. The NCAA is pumping those out every year right now. There's been 3 or 4 great wide receiver classes in a row. But, man, you got to protect this guy. You don't want another Andrew Luck, even if he is a Jaguar. And that segues perfectly to my pick. My pick is the 104 is Joe Burrow. I love Joe Burrow. I saw someone tweet on Twitter that they should draft Jamar Chase. And I was like, if they do, Mike Brown and Zach Taylor should be arrested for criminal negligence. Get this man an offensive lineman. You know what? I think they're drafting 5. If I remember correctly, that is correct. They're drafting 5. I've seen mock drafts. I've seen Dane Brugler's most recent mock draft. They had Penei Sewell falling all the way down to the Cowboys. That would also be criminal negligence on behalf of the Bengals if they were to let an offensive lineman like that. But I could also see where maybe they trade back. A lot of teams are going to want to get ahead of the Lions now that Matthew Stafford is going to be on the move because the Lions are in the game. What's Atlanta going to do? Is Carolina going to want to move up? So maybe they move back, but I know 2 things. I know they've got their quarterback of the future, and I know they have their wide receiver 1 of the future. So they're building stuff. And then G is trying to threaten me with an Atlanta Falcons helmet. It's not going to work.
We're taking a quarterback.
Well, you can draft even about 2 picks. So there you go. I'm going Joe Burrow. I'm really counting on this organization to do the right thing and support him with some offensive line help. So Jordan, it's back to you. You get to take the 5th QB off the board. Any comments on anyone that you've heard so far?
No, that's in some order. I figured that would be what it was. And this is where I think the turn goes. I would just, my only question for Matt would be if you knew right now that Lawrence was Andrew Luck, is that a success? Like in
terms of his short career?
Yeah, in terms of if I gave you Andrew Luck's career over the next however many years, I forget however many years he played, was it 7, 8 or whatnot for Luck? If I gave you that for Lawrence, would you take that?
I think I would. Yeah. It's especially too, cause I try to obviously keep it in a broad range of the NFL draft and NFL team building, but in fantasy football, I'm usually not playing outside of a 3-year window, which is usually why getting these Russian quarterbacks doesn't bother me. But that being said, there's no guarantees in the NFL. And that's one thing that I really try to, as much as I love watching tape on all of these guys and talking about hundreds of prospects, it's a tough league to make it in. So if you can get 8 dang good years out of it, I'm sure Memphis, I won't speak for you, but I'm sure as a Colts fan, you'll take your 8 years of Andrew Luck, although I'm sure you'd want more, but because he gave you just enough to tease you along there. But I would be fine with that for Trevor Lawrence. And obviously, everybody wants a Tom Brady career, but that's not a realistic projection.
Yeah.
I won't speak for all of Colts Nation, but I wish Jim Irsay and Chris Ballard could get him to come back for maybe a 2-3 year run. But I will just say, I don't remember the exact stat, but it was something to the effect of every season that Andrew Luck played at least 14 games, he finished as a top 5 QB. So from a dynasty and a fantasy standpoint, which is what we're all doing tonight, I think we would all take a guy that was guaranteed to be top 5 at the position, even if I would rather have him burn bright for 8 years than have him be mediocre for 15. So I'm going to answer your question too. There you go, J-Mac.
Yeah,
It's a good chance he burned brightly for 15.
Yeah,
you missed out on 7.
I like what I sort of like what your both your guys' thoughts there, and sort of that range of outcomes with expectations, because I think a surprising amount of people would be like, that's a disappointment, but in the range of quarterback, top 10 picks, like that's actually pretty good in terms of what we get. Man, so this is tough. It's not Tua for me. I'll say that I'm a little uncertain about him going forward. I just have some questions. So I'm probably going to go fresh here. There's really 2 guys that I would go with. I don't know. I'll take Zach Wilson with the caveat that I'm not certain yet on him and Fields. Right. For me, it's really close between the 2. I think they're both going to be top 5 probably picks in the NFL draft would be my guess. So my advice would be to take the cheaper one if there's going to be a gap that opens up, which I think there is going to be one. And I realize that I'm probably going against that by taking Wilson here, but I'm going to take Wilson.
I'm a big Zach Wilson guy, and I'm a big fan of what I call collective IQ and getting input from other people. And some of the people, obviously Dane Brugler does a good job. I mentioned him earlier. I mentioned this podcast all the time. It's the 3 and Out podcast with John Middlecoff. He was a scout in the Eagles organization when Andy Reid was the head coach. And he's had a lot of good things to say about Zach Wilson. His one concern is that it's his slight frame. He's very, I don't want to call him bird-chested, but he's not very thick across the middle. And from an arm strength standpoint, it doesn't seem to affect him. My fear is that, he's been playing, is it the Power? Is that the BYU? Is that the Pac-12, or is that the WAC?
They're independents, I think, right? Aren't they independents?
Okay.
They're independent. They played mostly a Mountain West schedule this past year, kind of just in like a quasi slapping things together. But yeah, they're independent.
Okay. So I'm kind of a little afraid. We talked about earlier about Kyler and a little bit about, quarterbacks taking hits. It's just his slight frame, but I love everything I've seen on the field. So, G, you are back on the clock with your second of 3 picks. You're going to get one more here in a bit. What do you think at the? I guess in this case it's the 106.
Well, I like the Zach Wilson pick. I like him as a footballer. I just hope that from what I've seen so far is that get rid of the fancy little crap that you try and do during the game. He gets a little bit too ahead of himself. If he gets rid of that, like some of the stuff that he does, he's going to get, and some of the throws he makes, he's going to get someone killed in the pros as well. But everything, mate, his arm angles, his base he throws from, it looks like a real talent. Looks like a really smart kid as well. But he takes his helmet off, man. He's a dude like 12 years old. He's got the most. Mate, he's got the most. He took his helmet off the first time I ever watched it, and it's gone. My God, this kid should be in high school, let alone step into the pros this year. But okay, I'm not really willing to go with what I don't know yet. I'm sticking with the Jordan. Stick with the devil, a little bit. As my dog just walks in the background, she's a little bit senile. She's a bit old, man, a bit senile now. I'm gonna rock with. I'm gonna stick with Daniel Jones. I still think. Sorry, I know you're a believer of Daniel Jones as well, but mate, he's so far away from being what he can be on the Giants. They're turning things around. It's going to take a little bit of time. They need to give him a couple more weapons. He's got Sterling Shepard, who's a good receiver. Darius Slayton, if he caught more balls than he dropped, would be great. Evan Ingram's really got to start pulling his finger out for what he was when he came into the league. And at the picking at number 11, so there's a good chance at number 11 that they could take maybe a Waddle. And if I'm drafting wide receivers and Waddle fell to me as a third, mate, I'd be wrapped if I ended up with Waddle when I'm doing rookie draft. Or he could even get Dane Bluger has him down to getting tight end Kyle Pitts, which would be absolutely fantastic for him. And don't forget, there was no Saquon Barkley this year. Nate Solder opted out. So with him back, I think it's adios to Jason Garrett, which is a good thing. But I'm going to stick with Daniel Jones, mate. He shows a lot of toughness for a guy. And I think he's going to be there when this Giants team turn it around.
I wanted to cuss you. I heard you say my man's name. And I know I was going to make it a special shout out to my boy JP Hurley of the DTC because he always gives me hell for liking Daniel Jones. I mean, the guy finished top 7 at the quarterback position in rushing, and he didn't play like 3.5 games or he played kind of some of them with a limited hamstring. I'm with you. I was kind of bummed when Jason Garrett. I think he's still going to be the OC. I know he interviewed.
Is he?
Yeah, he interviewed for some jobs. Last I knew, because I want him to have some continuity. I was kind of bummed when he lost Pat Shurmur. Pat Shurmur's not the best head coach you'll ever see, but he's a pretty good OC, and he had a history of getting a lot out of these guys. So G stole my pick at the 106. Not surprised at all. But Mr. Hicks, you're up. Anything on Daniel Jones or Zach Wilson, especially with Zach because you are our Devy guy?
Yeah, I will say as a Giants fan, I am not a huge fan of Daniel Jones. And I was never a fan of that pick, and I don't think it's progressed along very well. So for me, I think the interesting point since I've last gone is going back to Zach Wilson here for a second. And, for me, Zach Wilson's currently my QB4 on the rookie big board, at least in terms of, translating specifically for fantasy football. I'm interested from a numbers perspective. And so, Jordan, I think you might be able to lend some insight on this. Zach Wilson, and I do like Zach Wilson. So I don't mean this in a totally disparaging way, but just digging into him a little bit, the improvement in his numbers from 2019 to 2020 are meteoric. I mean, his numbers, especially in terms of efficiency, they were horrible in 2019. 11-9 touchdown to interception ratio. I think he threw for like an extra 1,300 yards. So I'm kind of curious, does that kind of discrepancy for you just show a player who's improved, or does that show, almost like a correction is due?
I mean, this is the question as old as time, right? It's Burrow, it's Josh Allen, right? Is this right? Is this the new going forward? Like, how do you treat a guy who's done something that we've never seen done before, right? What's the prior on that? So that's kind of where I'm like, it is a level of uncertainty. I think I get the impression, and the reason I took him is I get the impression that the NFL is lower on Justin Fields than we are. And when I say we, I mean the collective, dynasty populace. And so I think the NFL is going to sort that out with Zach Wilson, and I think they're going to side on the side of treating it that's who he is, that he's more on the side of that's improvement and not fluke. That's the impression that I get. And ultimately, if he gets inside the top 10 line, history has proven that they're pretty much, you can just take the cheapest one and, and hope for the best, because it's pretty much random after that.
Yeah. It's interesting to me, I like Zach Wilson, so I don't mean this in a disparaging way, but when I'm really thinking about how they project as prospects, I think Zach Wilson, folks feel comfortable right now with his floor being a little bit higher. And I think sometimes we get into trouble drafting for floor because we just talked about it. Nobody's a guarantee, right? In some kind of shades of Josh Rosen, the folks who took Josh Rosen for his floor. And I'm not suggesting that Zach Wilson is Josh Rosen, but just from a, strategically making your pick, there's a little bit of that. Now, who I think Zach Wilson actually projects pretty well out to, and I don't love player comps, but I also don't hear a lot of people making this one. I see a lot of Baker Mayfield in terms of how he approaches the game, the arm angles he uses, the fact that people think he might be a little bit more mobile than he really is. And I know, G, you said you don't like his arm angles. I think his arm angles are
I like his arm angles. I don't like all the fancy stuff that he throws in every now and then, because those things in the pros will kill your team. I love the arm angles.
Yeah, you're right. At times he does. He'll lead his guys way too far out, and a couple of his guys they get clocked. And when your wide receiver gets clocked in the NFL, it's not going to go the same way, right? So you have some good points. And all of that being said, coming back to my pick here, it's really for me between Justin Fields, who is my QB2 right now, or Tua. And I think for me, this is a protest pick. I'm going to take Tua because I think that we as a dynasty community are swinging too far away from him.
Matt is storming the Capitol.
I understand the swing, right? The swing back, but Tua, he is still one of the best college prospects I've evaluated. We got half a season. He was thrown in mid-season on a team that had unrealistic expectations. I mean, we had UDFAs primarily out there catching balls for him. No running game, and everybody knows the best friend to a rookie quarterback is a solid running game, a limited playbook, a lack of confidence overall from his coaching staff of really letting him have the reins. And he was coming back off of a really bad lower body injury. So there were a lot of things working not into his favor, and I think he's going to come back this next season and take a really large step forward. We talked about Josh Allen. If we gave up on Josh Allen after the first time they put him on the field, I mean, he looked horrible right early on. And I was a Josh Allen fan coming out. So I'm not backing off of Tua. I like Justin Fields. I like Trey Lance. They're both tempting options there for me. But yeah, I'm sticking with Tua, who was my QB1 in last year's class. And I haven't seen so much that I need to swing away from that.
Well, I will save Tua until we pass him around the horn here. But I do want to make one point in the conversation that I picked up between Jordan and Matt, in that we were talking about, Josh Allen, and really it's a two-parter. A, don't go looking for that. Don't go looking for who's the next Josh Allen. It could be a 1 in a million shot. You have a guy with an unbelievable work ethic, an old farm kid from Northern California, and a fantastic offensive coordinator who is doing everything in his power to get the most out of him, and a front office that went and got him a true alpha wide receiver one. It's not always going to be able to project that, but also, too, the NFL stands for not for long. And you have to look at, the NFL like the tech industry. What was big yesterday is not big today. And what the NFL is doing today will not be big in 5 years. So just try to, I don't want to say live in the moment, but try to focus on what you do know. Project a little bit, but not so far that you put yourself in danger. And after saying that, I'm going to wish cast a little bit. I'm going to wish cast this pick a little bit. So I'm going to take Trey Lance, but here's my caveat. If this pick would come down to after the NFL draft, where they actually landed, I want nothing more than for Trey Lance to get drafted to the Carolina Panthers, to an amazing head coach and OC combination in Matt Rule and Joe Brady, and get the 1 year Patrick Mahomes, where he sits for a year behind a proven veteran, a bit of a journeyman in Teddy Two Gloves, and let him learn what it's like to be a pro, what it's like to work hard, what it's like. It didn't hurt Patrick Mahomes. It didn't stunt his growth one iota. And it's not an apples to apples 1-to-1 comparison, but it's something that I think would benefit him as a guy who I think last I remember he had like 15, 16 starts at the college level. And just to spend the year, and then it's cool. They can afford it. Teddy's making like 20, 22 million, something like that this year. Nothing crazy. It's a good living, but you get my point as it relates to NFL quarterbacks. And then you can let Teddy go in 2022 and let him take the reins. So that's kind of what I want. I would also consider doing the same thing if Justin Fields landed there or anyone landed there. I want some of these guys, a redshirt year would not kill them for me. So, Jordan, anything on Lance or anything on Tua before you make your final pick of this here draft?
I'd just be interested. All of these guys, I'm going with the test of, can you beat, like, especially AFC guys? I'm not really sure what the equivalent is for the NFC right now, but I think the AFC is a good marker. Can you beat Patrick Mahomes in Arrowhead in January? Because if not, what are you doing, right? Because that's what you're going to have to do for the rest of your career, is probably that. And I don't see very many people that can do that right now. And I thought Josh Allen was in that range of outcomes. And I think at his ceiling, he could be. But there's not many other guys that have that. And so I'd be interested with Matt talking about the thing with Wilson, and you sort of putting him on that Baker spectrum. Do you like just from a team build perspective, do you just take the higher variance guy because you kind of need, like, if you're going to take a quarterback, right? Do you, like, you comped Rosen in the, like, who gives a damn about floor argument, which I kind of agree with. And is maybe the lesson that we take from Josh Allen, not that we should project this big thing, but that we should take the guy that, you know, if it's close, you take the guy that's got a lot wider range of outcomes, because there's a pretty good chance the guy with the quote high floor is going to miss too. And at least you have a shot to sort of capture that with the high upside guy.
Yeah. And I think the thing that's difficult too, right, on top of this, is one of the things that we don't talk about enough with this advancement in Josh Allen's game is, what did Buffalo do? It took them a couple years, but they built a good set of wide receivers, not big name wide receivers other than bringing in Diggs. They brought in wide receivers that fit Josh Allen, right? And it's the same thing. It's the same reason Lamar was able to be successful in Baltimore. From a team building organizational standpoint, you have to build around your young quarterback. And some teams don't do that. They want them to come in and just fit the system already. And that's one thing, that's what makes it so difficult in scouting and evaluating quarterbacks, because we have no idea what that organization is going to do. So I think expanding your range of outcomes is a helpful thing to do. And it's one of the reasons, although I like Zach Wilson, I don't think I'm going to get him at his ADP and at his cost, because I will take Trey Lance over Zach Wilson every single time. And there is no guarantee that Trey Lance will end up being the better prospect. But my goodness, if he hits, right, he is going to hit. You're putting all your money down on the roulette table, right, instead of just putting a little bit and playing the penny slots. And so although I like both of them as NFL quarterbacks from a fantasy perspective, I'm always willing to roll the dice, because finishing in seventh place and missing the playoffs, that's not fun for anybody in fantasy football, right? So either finish in first or finish in last, and figure out how to rebuild your team next year.
I like that. If you just go back, you were talking, Matt, about like you put players around a quarterback. Well, it pretty much makes common sense, really, to most of us. But with Tua, if you look, he came off the hip operation, so let's give him a good, this year to get over that. Like, no operation's great, especially to a hip. Mm-hmm. And someone that uses it as much as he does as well. They've hired Charlie Fry, his quarterback coach he had at the Elite 11 high school level, that after being around him, he shot to fame at the college level. They have the second youngest roster at the Dolphins. They have 2 first-round picks. They have 2 second-round picks. They got number 3. They got number 18 in this draft. They got plenty of cap space. What I think Memphis is a cap space guy. I think it's around about $23 million at the moment. That's probably going to go up by the time they burn a few blokes. So if this is what you want to do with Tua and he's a guy, you probably got who I think at the moment is the number 1 wide receiver that I've looked at in Jamar Chase, sitting on the board. I know 3's high, but like you said, you got to put guys around this dude to make him who he is. It's a perfect example is Tua, and the Dolphins have the opportunity to go ahead and do that now.
And I think one thing to keep in mind too is that offensive line is so young. And this was one of the things I tried to dispel. Although Tua was my top quarterback in last year's class, he's never been a scrambling quarterback. People have kind of had that impression of him. He's a pocket guy, and he needs time to operate in the pocket. He's been working with the best offensive line in the country, right, at Alabama for 3 years. The game is going to come slow to NFL quarterbacks. And so having that year to catch up and adjust to it, and to your point, he has to have weapons around him. And so that offensive line, I think, is where it starts. But you're right. They're with one of their first-round selections, they're going to go wide receiver. And kind of the common narrative right now is Devonta Smith. I think we're riding the Alabama thing a little bit too much. And if you're going to take an Alabama wide receiver at 3, for me, I'm taking Jalen Waddle. I'm not taking Devonta Smith. I think it's a way better fit for them. Matt. I would much rather do that. But, that being said, I think that, even if Miami waits to use some of the second-round draft capital on wide receiver, you're going to get some dang good wide receivers at the top of the second round in this year's class. Guys like Terrace Marshall, who I really like a lot, even Tylan Wallace. Those types of guys can help your team too. So they have to bring in those wide receivers. But at the end of the day, it's not just about bringing in talent and bringing in draft capital, right? It's about figuring out who your quarterback is, how they play, and how you're going to fit their style, right? Like John Brown wouldn't help every quarterback in the league, but he is perfect for Josh Allen. Same thing with Gabriel Davis, and same thing with Cole Beasley, right? Without Cole Beasley, that offense doesn't function in the same way. So Miami has to figure out not only, who we going to go spend some money on in free agency and who we going to draft, but we have to figure out who our quarterback is. That's why those reps were so important at the end of last season. It's not, is Tua going to be our guy moving forward? For me, it's who do we need to put around him to make him, the next top tier quarterback, playing in the AFC. So I think that's why he was getting the reps over Ryan Fitzpatrick. They understood that they got those 10 wins mostly because of their defense, and their offense needs a lot of love this year.
Well, I think you outlined it very clearly. If that skill group in Miami only had Devonta Parker and Mike Gesicki left from the 2020 class, or I guess roster, I would not be surprised if they didn't do a total overhaul. And having a Devontae Parker to allow a Jamar Chase or someone to kind of learn the ropes a little bit. Kind of like we saw Adam Thielen do, like if you watch track and field, you watch a sprinter in a relay race hand the baton. Somewhere along the season, we saw Adam Thielen hand the baton over to Justin Jefferson. And I think we could see something cool like that in Miami. So great conversation, guys. But a long way to just really let Jordan buy time to figure out who he wants to take at 109.
I was going to ask who here would take Deshaun Watson instead of Tua, the third pick and the 18th pick in this draft, but that was I'll move it along. I'll take Justin Fields, and he was a debate that I was having with the last pick. I do think. I think he has an interesting range of outcomes, and there's something with the. I get this sense with the NFL. I think I mentioned this before that they might not be as high. Some of the the NFL media might not be as high as we are on Justin Fields, but I have seen that trend happen, and it ends up coming a little bit more towards us, especially with the guys that have some of the good numbers. So I think he's going to be a top 10 pick, and I have a little question about it.
Well, I like the guy a lot. I referenced both of these guys already, but Dane Brugler and John Middlecoff, they both wondered out loud, and I think it could have been Lance Zierlein as well, wondered if he could have stood to benefit from going back to school one more year. Obviously, it's too hard to pass up that it's a different perspective and a different magnitude. But look at what happened to a guy like Chuba Hubbard, who came back to college, and he would have easily probably been a day 2 pick last year, and now his stock has taken a tremendous hit. So sometimes when you're a young person in your early 20s, sometimes not even 21, some of these guys can't even buy a beer legally, and they're going to be handed over millions of dollars in the face of a $5 billion franchise. It's a weird world that they're being thrust in. So I don't blame them one bit for getting the money. And speaking of money, G's got plenty of it. I know him.
That's in the way, mate. Hoarding it. I'm hoarding it in the backyard in tins.
That's a good use for it. So speaking of tins, you're up at the 110s.
Oh man, I was really hoping that maybe look. I knew Justin Fields was going to go there because everybody else. This is tough. Dwayne Haskins, Drew Lock, Jordan Love, Jalen Hurts, Mac Jones, and Cole Trask. You forgot Gardner Minshew.
This was not for backup, sir.
I'm picking from a backup now. Oh my God. I liked when watching the wide receivers at Alabama, I really like what Mac Jones did, but Mac Jones has have to go into a certain type of offense. He's like a manager QB to me. Accurate, makes the right decisions, but I don't know. Oh God. Can I take? I'm going to take Jordan Love for the only reason is that I reckon that Aaron Rodgers is that was the last straw for him kicking the field goal in the game on the weekend, and I think that's for him. That's I'm out. And least I know that I might have a starting QB out of the guys that are left. Not that I like Jordan Love, but they're going to give him a shot. They spent enough draft capital on him. Mate, that has been the only reason that I'd take Jordan Love over. Probably Mac Jones would be the other guy that I'd take, but I'm just hoping that was the last straw for Aaron Rodgers.
He's going to follow Deshaun Watson's footsteps and says, "Get me the hell out of town." The problem with some of these contracts, and I don't want to go down this because it is a long topic, and maybe we'll have some of these guys back to discuss it. But with the COVID salary cap in life, timing is everything. And to find a Willie dance partner with the assets that the Houston Texans or the Green Bay Packers or whoever is going to want to acquire, it's a horrible year. Your timing is horrible from that standpoint. I mean, really, like Watson has painted himself into a corner. So I don't love the Love pick, but I can understand it. I can understand because out of the rest of these guys, we don't know draft capital from the NFL on Mac Jones. We don't know because John Elway gave the new GM the keys to do whatever he wanted at the QB position. So that makes Drew Lock a gamble. So at least you got a guy with first-round NFL draft capital. So it's a gamble. You're a gambler. And
I think Drew Lock's sitting in the corner at the moment with his head in his hands for the entire offseason, to be honest.
Yeah.
So I want to get the Devy expert. I want to get his take on Jordan Love. He was kind of a buzzy quarterback last year. Some guys loved him. Some guys did not love him. I remember Garrett Price from the Dynasty Nerds was on. Not a fan. Not a fan at all. But where are you at with Jordan Love? And then who are you going to take in this little exercise?
There's two options for me, and there's really only two options left on the board for me.
I just blew it, didn't I, Matt?
It's Jordan Love was not going to be an option. You did not snipe me. For me, there's two options left. It's Jalen Hurts or it's Drew Lock, and I'll tell you that I was not a Jordan Love fan. The mental side of the game for Jordan Love was so atrocious, and I think we bought a little bit too much into his tools, which I don't think were actually all that great either. I'll tell you what, I don't know. Memphis will probably shake his head on me. I think I'd probably still rather have Jacob Eason than Jordan Love because I would love to see him win that starting job. I believe in his tools a little bit more. And I'll quickly mention that I don't think Mac Jones or Kyle Trask are going to be successful starting quarterbacks in the NFL. I think they're both day two guys. With Kyle Trask missing the Senior Bowl, coming off of a really bad final bowl game of the season, Kyle Trask might be closer to round 4 right now than he is round 1. And I don't think he's going to be taken with high draft capital. And I think Mac Jones is a career backup. I think he's a clipboard holder. Yeah. Neither one of those guys, I think, operates really well outside of their system. So Jalen Hurts, he's interesting for me. A rational, logical person would probably take Jalen Hurts, but a totally jaded person who is way too invested in this player already, and I'm just going to keep tripling down and getting smacked in the face for it. I'm taking Drew Lock, man. I can't quit him. I know he's fighting for his job, but I think he's a gunslinger. I think they have good options there in Denver, and I'm not sold on the idea that they're going to go and spend any high capital trying to replace him. I think what they're going to do is they're going to bring in a veteran who is going to come in there and challenge him and make it look like he's going to lose his job and make it, kind of push him, kind of like a Nick Foles to Mitch Trubisky type situation, except I think Nick Foles went a little too far. Chicago was like, oh, crap, what are we going to do here? So I think that's going to kind of be what happens to Drew Lock this offseason. Maybe he sinks, maybe he swims, but I don't feel good in any of the other guys either, so I might as well roll the dice and go with the upside.
Well, first of all, Drew Lock has sick dance moves. And that's not to be and I don't want to give too many of these guys the COVID pass, but I really want to see Drew Lock have as close to as regular an offseason as possible with Pat Shurmur. You get Cortland Sutton back. You get a full offseason with Jerry Jeudy. You have KJ Hamler. You have Noah Fant. You have continued investment in the offensive line. The table's set. You know, you have the plate, you have the silverware, you have the asparagus, you have the baked potato. It's up to Drew Lock to be the steak. It's up to him to be the centerpiece of what they're trying to do. And I really think that in Dynasty, you know, it's a real risk-reward equation. And can Drew Lock not take a Josh Allen leap? If anyone says take a Josh Allen leap, drink. But can he take a leap? Can he improve by 15% from what he did in 2020? Because we saw flashes. Sometimes it was in garbage time. But you know what? We know he's got the arm talent. I hate that word too. But we know he has the arm talent. He has the physical tools in his toolbox. Can he mature a little bit? Can he grow with Pat Shurmur? And can he grow with those weapons? If he does, then I will tell you, Drew Lock, based on what's around him in Denver, this is from a fantasy standpoint, from the fact that he's going to play Justin Herbert twice a year, Mahomes twice a year, and say what you want about the LA, Las Vegas, Oakland by way of whatever Raiders. They were a top 10 offense in 2020. So he's going to have to score fantasy points. So I think that if everything breaks his way, and that's a big if, you got a guy. Now, as the host, I have the last pick. I'm going to cheat. I'm taking Mac Jones, Kyle Trask. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take whoever gets the highest draft capital here, because I really think the New Orleans Saints are going to be forced to draft one of these guys and do some cutting elsewhere. Here's why. They're $112 million over the cap. They cannot afford to re-sign Jameis unless they make some kind of handshake deal where Jameis plays for the veteran minimum, and if he plays well, they give him a king's ransom next offseason. But one of these teams that's in cap hell, cap jail, is going to have to potentially risk a first-round pick on these guys, knowing that they could be throwing it away. But let's be honest, New Orleans is drafting like 28th, and he wouldn't be the first 28th overall pick to bust. So at least this way, if the guy hits, at least he gets the team gets that fifth-year option on him. So do I think he's worthy, Mac Jones or Kyle Trask? No. Could it be a necessary evil for a team like New Orleans? Yes. And then I get the benefit of Sean Payton as the offensive play caller. I get Alvin Kamara. I get Mike Thomas. We get Adam Troutman, a rookie that I like. And then Jalen Hurts, guys. I like Jalen Hurts. I often come across as the anti-Jalen Hurts guy. I am not. I'm just reading the clues. I'm like Scooby-Doo. They leave. We're working on a mystery, and they're leaving me clues. Carson Wentz says, I can't get along with Doug Peterson. They said, cool, we'll fire him. You know what? I did really well with Frank Reich. We can't get him, but we can get his right-hand man in, Nick Sirianni. And then we can bring over another guy. Everything's telling me that this $135 million or whatever they owe Carson Wentz is more important than anything else right now. And I said it before, I would say it again, and it's the best thing, guys. If you have Jalen Hurts on your Superflex rosters, it's the best thing to happen to him. Maybe you'll get lucky and a team will trade for him. Maybe they'll say, hey, I like what I saw in that four-game sample size. Let's go get him. We know Philadelphia. That would be the final straw, right? Can't work with Peterson. I'm intimidated by Hurts, and I want Frank Reich back. Well, how about 2 out of 3 ain't bad? We got rid of Hurts, we got rid of Peterson, and we got your Frank Reich's right-hand man. So if you're a Hurts fan in this exercise, you're just hoping for good news. Maybe I would love to see him go to the Patriots. I know people laugh at that, but it's an AFC team taking a player from the NFC. They just spent this entire season with a running-based quarterback, and they need juice in New England. And you're not going to get the juice at 15 with Mac Jones, and you're not going to get juice with Kyle Trask at 15. That would be a hell of a reach, by the way. You're going to get juice with Jalen Hurts. Maybe they can give their second-round pick. That's a kind of a refund for the Eagles, and maybe a little something on the side. And then that's a win-win-win. A win for the Patriots, a win for the Eagles, a win for Carson Wentz, and a win for Jalen Hurts. We can all win that way. But speaking of win, guys, you guys, the listeners, are the winners because we have good friends like Jordan McNamara, like Matt Hicks, and like G. So I'm going to go around the horn and give these guys one last opportunity to shout out all the good work that they're doing in the fantasy and dynasty space. So, Jordan, you're back up, man. One more time. The book, the pods, the work, the everything, please.
Yeah, you can go get the book, pre-order. It'll be out within a few hours. It's crazy after the writing process here. This goes to releasing it. So yeah, it's coming out on Saturday. You can pre-order $30 over at analytics@dynasty.com. And I'm doing daily podcasts, which I did during during COVID, doing daily podcasts through the off season. So you can get that membership, that what I call the Dynasty Daily, over at Analytics Camara Dynasty.
That's awesome, guys. Yeah, a lot of times like us that we have premium content. DM me, slide in my DMs, ask questions. Hey, what comes with that? That's great. A group me chat is always great. A daily podcast is great, as well as access to a mind like Jordan. So take advantage, slide in his DMs at McNamara Dynasty, and talk to him about the book and what's going on. G, all you're selling is yourself and AJ.
Mate, I'm just looking up where you contact us actually right now, because that's not my gig, mate. That's AJ's, my co-host. He's the IT specialist. I just turn up and look good and bring the drinks every Friday night. So we usually do our pods around 9 o'clock at PM Australian time. So for you poor suckers, I think most of you are probably still getting your beauty sleep. Memphis definitely needs it. Hence why he's never got up and joined us at that time of the morning. So yeah, we'll just we're looking at going forward just to getting a few guests on in the coming weeks, and just and rolling over, like I said, until we speak to you again, Memphis, and go back over all our picks, and then we'll just start putting out our five guys every week. We'll start with the wide receivers. I think we're going by the draft network, just using the stacking system of where they've got guys. We have to use something, so we'll just use hers and just talk about each bloke, and eventually we'll get a few people on. I'm definitely going to hit up Matt. We'll get Matt on in the next couple of weeks. Get him up. He'll be up at, don't know what the time difference is, but probably about 4 o'clock in the morning, dude. But I know you'll do it for us. So that's what we're doing. So we're Aussie guys on Twitter, and we're available and all that. So just keep an eye out for us. I have absolutely no idea what any of our URLs or Twitter numbers are. Or
G, what I will do for you is I will make sure to tag AJ in this appearance for you. to make sure that he gets all of the people going. It's amazing. He really is.
Mate, we're Australians, man. We just roll with it, mate. We just lay back and whatever.
You're so easy going. There's a reason why I tell you guys that you're just British Texans, but you guys just roll with it. And but they really are, guys. This is the #1 dynasty and fantasy podcast in Australia for American football. So great to have you back on, buddy. Thank you. And by the way, thank you for being a better guest than I was. I did my appearance on your guys' show from the cab of my pickup truck.
I took the day off for this. I didn't get paid today. I'll send you the bill.
Bill me, yeah. Matt, speaking of bill us, man, hit us up with what's going on at the Draft Bible, SI, and everything you've got going on.
Yeah, man. The big thing right now for me is the rookie big board. Like I said, building that out, access to that patreon.com/BFF educator. And what I'm doing is going through, I have 170 guys right now on the big board, ranking every offensive skill position player coming out in the 2021 class. And we're going to be building this big board, not just through the draft season, but this is really going to be what I'm honing in on moving forward, as well as Devy and Dynasty, tracking the rookie value throughout the year, 365 days a year, not giving up on them over the summer. So I'm really excited about this project and extending it throughout the year. Just launched a new podcast to go along with it, Rookie Big Board Podcast, wherever you get your podcasts, and on YouTube, so we're really pushing the YouTube. So make sure you check that out over there as well. But, subscribe to the Patreon and you get access to our Slack channel, patron-only leagues, as well as the Rookie Big Board itself. And that comes along not only with rookie rankings, but I also just finished up updating my Devy board, flipping it over for the new guys, the incoming high school kids coming in as freshmen, and the Dynasty big boards next. And on the slate this week is to add in those cornerstone rankings as well, which is exactly what we were talking about today. So I feel like this was a perfect warm-up exercise for me to get ready for those cornerstone rankings as well. So yeah, that's the big stuff right now. And of course on Twitter at the FF_educator. And si.com/NFL/draft. We're trying to bring Devy to the mainstream, so I'm excited to be a part of that as well. And I'm glad you had me on here, Memphis, as well as hearing from our other awesome guests. I feel like I'm just taking notes here, so always good to be in the war zone.
Well, I appreciate you coming back, especially so soon. I appreciate all of you guys jumping on with me because You know, people are always like, how are you always so ready for rookie season? It's because I hang out with dudes like this. You know, I hang out with people who are educated. I'm a big believer in collective IQ. I believe that none of us know as much as all of us. And this is a good lesson for anybody listening. Don't get butthurt when someone says something anti your favorite player. Instead of being upset, ask yourself, why is Jordan saying that? Or why is Matt saying that? What are they seeing that I don't? You know, do I take that down? The power of collective IQ and working together to nail this, because the quarterback position, especially as Superflex gains more and more and more popularity, first of all, it's never cheaper to get your quarterbacks than it is at draft time. That's number one. Because once you have to trade for one in season, you're going to get your feet held to the fire. That's number one. Number two, by listening to pods like this, by reading books like The Analytics of Dynasty, by going and listening to me and G and AJ on the Aussie guys, and by going to SI and the Draft Bible, you're just preparing yourself in every possible way. And you know what? Build a spreadsheet. Do stuff. Hey, you know what? Memphis likes him, and Memphis has him third, and you know, you have him third, and I have him second. And do some aggregate rankings. It's not that hard, guys. Just you can create your own, and then at the end of the day, you'll feel more prepared, because then when you're on the clock in that rookie draft, you won't have to sweat it. You know, you'll have your own big board built. But listen, we are right at that time. We are going to jump off here. Make sure you're subscribed everywhere: YouTube, Dynasty WarZone, podcast, Instagram, you name it, we got it. And on behalf of Jordan, Matt, and G, I am Memphis. And remember, here at the Dynasty WarZone, we are just making the world a better place for fantasy football. We'll see you back here tomorrow night with some guy named Jerry. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Have a great week.
Thanks, man.